What is going on, everybody? Shwazy here, and today I'm going to be reviewing a 2023 Nissan Frontier Pro-4X. It's a mid-size pickup truck that competes with the Toyota Tacoma, the Ford Ranger, the Chevy Colorado, and the Jeep Gladiator. And in today's video, we're going to take a look at the exterior, the interior, talk about the powertrain, some of the safety features, then we're going to get behind the wheel and take it for a drive. Okay, so about the Nissan Frontier. Well, in 2022, Nissan redesigned the Frontier with the next generation. If you guys recall, the previous generation of the Frontier went all the way from 2005 through 2021. So it was an over 15-year run for that previous generation, and it was in need of an update. And so I am really glad they finally updated this truck, because this segment is pretty hot, and this is also a really competitive truck. And you know, there's a reason that one sold for so long. It was a very, very good truck. And so this one just kind of builds on that, but just adds some modern amenities and goodies. We'll start off with the exterior and talk about some of the features. So first off, the length of this vehicle is about 210 inches. It's very similar to that of the Ford Ranger and the Toyota Tacoma. And the nice thing is you can get this truck configured in a variety of different configurations. So you can get this in the crew cab setup like I have here with a 5-foot bed. That's actually the only option you can get the Pro-4X in. Or you can also get this in a extended cab. Nissan calls this the King cab, where you just have, you know, about half of a door space here that will open the opposite way. And if you do that, you can get a 5-foot bed, or you can get a up to 6-foot bed. What's interesting about this is some of the other competition doesn't offer this. For example, the next generation Colorado that's coming out this year or next year, that's only coming in one configuration. Now, maybe that has to do with sales, and you know, maybe Nissan doesn't sell very many of other configurations, but they do offer that for anybody who's interested. So that's a really nice thing from Nissan to offer, and kind of gives it a competitive advantage. And talking about styling, you know, coming over here to the back, I really just like the way they've kind of rounded out these fenders. Now, forgive the ice on this vehicle. It is currently about 5 degrees outside where I'm at, and so for that reason, this car has frost on it. But you know, you have these like rounded fender flares on top of the fender flares over here. You know, of course, you have the Pro-4X on this one. We'll talk about that more in a minute. And then I like how this belt line just kind of runs across all the way to the front, and you have a little bit of a line that builds up to the front, giving you that same type of bulged fender in the front end. We'll talk about the front headlights in a moment as well. But coming further back here, you do have LED taillights, and they look really good at night. You know, this thing has really good lighting, front and back. And then coming over to the tailgate, you do have Frontier stamped across the tailgate, which is nice. You have the Pro-4X badge, and then this is a dampened tailgate, which is really nice, and it's actually pretty light to pick up. It's not the lightest that I felt, but it is pretty light to pick up. Now, like I mentioned earlier, you do have a 5-foot bed back here, and it's good enough for, you know, a vehicle of this size. And then over here, you do have a power outlet. Now, this doesn't come standard. This is included in a package, but it is nice that you have a household power outlet, which you can turn on from inside of the cabin. It is a max of 400 watts, which is nice. You do have some tie downs over here, which are standard, but then this vehicle in particular in front of me has the Utilitrack system, which is kind of an adjustable type of straps. If I can do it correctly, so you can actually, you know, unlock this and move this along this track, and then lock it into place again, and then that will allow you to kind of strap things in various positions. Actually a really smart idea. So you have that both on the driver and passenger side, and even along the truck bed frame over there as well. Over here on the right hand side, you do have some lighting back here, both on the driver and passenger side, which is nice, especially at night. And then you do have the light up here lighting up as well. But that pretty much finishes off the truck bed. Now, Nissan does say the truck bed is a little bit deeper than the previous generation. And what I do like about mid-size pickup trucks is you can actually reach over and grab something, whereas full-size pickup trucks, you either got to, you know, stand on the tire or the bumper just to reach inside, you know, for my 5'9" height. Okay, now coming over to the side, I do want to mention, if you guys are interested in what this color is, it's called Baja Storm. And personally, I think it looks really good. Now, it has been done by some of the competition, and this is kind of a common color, but I think on a pickup truck, this sandy color looks really good, especially with the design styling of the Frontier. Now, as we're over here, I do want to mention one more thing about this cab area. So Nissan says the cab of the Frontier sits on hydraulic mounts, which reduces some of the vibrations and the noise that you get from riding down the road. Personally, I do think the interior cabin is quiet. I don't know if that's because of the hydraulic mounts or if that's more of a marketing gimmick, but just figured I'd let you know that this cab does sit on a hydraulic mount, kind of like a shock absorber for the interior cabin. Now, coming to the front end, I do want to mention that this Pro-4X trim does have LED running lights, LED headlights, and LED fog lights. Now, if you pick the lower trim levels, you're not going to have LED fog lights, but nonetheless, this thing does look really good at night. And I will say these headlights are actually really, really bright. I'm going to try to throw up some footage right now of me driving at night just to show you, but I was really impressed. They're just LEDs, right? But they just seem like they're extremely white, extremely bright, so really easy to see, especially when you're driving in a dark canyon like I did earlier this week. You do have the Nissan logo over here with the lava red exterior coloring. So I'm not sure if you noticed that earlier, but the Pro-4X badge back there, the tow hooks down here, they have what Nissan calls lava red coloring. It just adds a little bit of a nice touch to it, making it just look a little bit different than your ordinary Nissan Frontier. And I think the front end looks really good. The only thing that a lot of people complain about is the fact that these are fake air inlets over here, but they're really not that bad. It's not super noticeable. It just has a really muscular front end stance. I think it finally looks better than what the previous generation was pushing for the last 15 years. Okay, now let's talk wheels and tires. The Frontier comes with 17-inch wheels, but this vehicle in front of me does come with the Pro Premium package, which changes up the design styling of these 17-inch wheels. These wheels are wrapped around 265 by 70 Hankook Dynapro all-terrain tires, and I think they look pretty good. They actually handle pretty well in the snow. As you can see, I'm here in this climate where it's been snowing a lot, and I haven't gotten stuck once. I drove it through a canyon. These have been really good, so I have no complaints on the snow capabilities of these tires. They kind of have this tread on the sidewall, which should add a little bit to the off-road capability, but these are not off-road or mud terrain tires, but they still look pretty good, and I think they match the truck very well. Okay, so you naturally aspirated fans are going to be really excited with what is under the hood. We're talking a 3.8 liter naturally aspirated V6 that produces 310 horsepower and 281 pound-feet of torque. Now, Nissan says this is a class-leading amount of horsepower. That is true, but I will say that the second place winner is 308 horsepower with the Chevy Colorado. But still, nonetheless, this is the most amount of horsepower you can get in a mid-size pickup truck, aside from the upcoming Ford Ranger Raptor. And this thing is actually really, really quick. We'll talk about that when I get behind the wheel and show you what it feels like, but this thing actually feels quicker than what you would expect. Car and Driver says 0 to 60 in about 7.5 seconds, but I think it's even better than that. Now, that power is all sent through a 9-speed automatic transmission. You don't have a CVT in this thing, so don't worry. Nissan CVT has not been transferred over to its pickup trucks. You have a conventional torque converter automatic, and it's a pretty good transmission. I have no complaints with it. You know, it shifts pretty quick. It's very comfortable to drive in. Okay, now you can get the Frontier in either rear-wheel drive or four-wheel drive, like this particular vehicle behind me. This is the Pro-4X. The 4 stands for four-wheel drive, but if you want these same off-road goodies with a two-wheel drive version, well, they do have the Pro-X, which just has rear-wheel drive. Now, the engine and the transmission in this four-wheel drive do offer a pretty decent fuel economy. It's not the best in class, but it's not bad considering it's a 3.8 liter V6. You're looking at 17 in the city and 22 on the highway for a combined 19. And I will say those figures are pretty accurate because my dashboard has been telling me I've got about 21.6 mpg, and this thing has been biased primarily towards highway driving, so pretty close to those EPA figures. Okay, this is a pickup truck, so let's talk towing capacity. Now, it's not the best in its class, but it's also not bad either. You're looking at just over 6,700 pounds, and this does have the additional features like trailer sway control and other safety features to keep you secure driving down the road. Okay, now in terms of payload, it really depends on what trim and spec you get. You can get upwards of 1,200 pounds, but this one in particular, the Pro-4X with all the bells and whistles, you're looking at just over 1,000 pounds, which isn't great, but it is also just a mid-size pickup truck. Okay, now I do want to mention that Nissan does take pride in the fact that the Frontier rides on a fully boxed frame, unlike some of the other Japanese competition, not to name any names. Okay, now I want to talk about what the Pro-4X trim includes. Now, the Pro-4X is similar to what you would see from like the Chevy Colorado Trail Boss or the Toyota Tacoma TRD off-road. It's not the most extreme version of the off-road vehicles, but it is for Nissan. This is the most extreme off-roader you can get, although some of the competition do offer something a little bit more capable, maybe about 5% more capable than this one, but this thing will probably accomplish the majority, if not everything you need from an off-road pickup truck. But the Pro-4X in specific does add a few off-road goodies. First off, you do have, like I mentioned earlier, the lava red coloration. You do also get front and underbody skid plates with the Pro-4X trim, which is nice. If you're taking this off-road, you can protect some of the underbody components. I believe there are 3 different types of skid plates underneath the vehicle to protect the underbody. Now, the next thing that the Pro-4X includes is something very similar to my Ford Bronco, and that is Bilstein shocks. They're a little bit hidden over here, but these are a really good shock setup. They're very nice on and off-road. I will say I have tested some other competitors that I feel are a little bit smoother, but we'll talk about ride and handling when we get inside because they'll actually surprise you what I say about this vehicle. But that is a nice add-on with the Pro-4X package. Now, in terms of approach approach angle, you're looking at around 32.6 degrees over here. Your breakover angle is around 19.6 degrees, and then your departure angle is about 23 degrees. So not bad. It's definitely not class leading, but definitely capable to take it off-road. In terms of ground clearance, you're looking at about 9.5 inches up front, 9.8 inches out back. Now, in case you're wondering, the ground clearance is actually pretty comparable to the Toyota Tacoma. The ZR2 Colorado is just slightly higher, but this is also not necessarily a ZR2 competitor. Now, coming over to the back, you do have a traditional 2-speed transfer case, and you do also have a rear locker. Now, you don't have any type of front locker, but really the only mid-size pickup truck that offers that is the Chevy Colorado ZR2. Also, I do like this Pro-4X little decal over here, and then you have the Nissan emblem with the lava red as well on the back. Now, one last thing I want to mention about the Pro-4X is it does offer the hill descent control, which is essentially an off-road cruise control where you kind of set it and this vehicle will automatically brake and maintain a really low speed as you're going rock crawling. Okay, climbing inside, let's talk about the interior. Now, starting off with the door panel, you do have some hard touch plastics there, and you know how big of a snob I am with that. But that being said, I'm almost okay with it in this application because this is kind of an off-roadish mid-size pickup truck, and likely the hard touch plastic is going to last a little bit better over time. Now, the rest of the door panel where you're actually going to put your elbow and rest your hand, that's actually soft touch material, and especially the part where you're resting your elbow is a pretty comfortable spot to sit in. I also like that when the door is closed, your elbows are in a perfect position to be able to grab onto the steering wheel and be comfortable driving on longer road trips. You do have automatic up and down on the driver's side, but for all the other window switches, you do have to hold the button down. Further down, you do have this kind of cool lava red accent on the door panel, and then this almost fake, like, I don't know, carbon fiber, like textured material. I don't even know really what the point is of this section, but it looks pretty cool with this Pro-4X lava red trim. Further down from that, you do have a cup holder and a little bit of a storage compartment. And then my vehicle does come with the upgraded Fender 10-speaker audio system, and it actually sounds pretty good. It's just as good as Bose, in my opinion. I don't really see a major difference, but I'm not a huge audiophile. Moving towards the seats, I do love the way they look, but I do kind of have a complaint about them. So I like the orange contrast stitching. I like kind of the fake, almost carbon fiber weave to them on the side bolsters. They are 6-way power adjustable, which is really nice to have. And Nissan calls these the zero gravity seats. Now, they've used this name on pretty much every Nissan and Infiniti product. And I will say that sitting in some other Nissan products and Infiniti products, those seats are more comfortable than this. I don't really see the zero gravitiness of these seats. They're not extremely comfortable. I just took this vehicle on about a 200-mile road trip, nothing very long. But after the end of the 200 miles, I felt like I was getting a little bit uncomfortable. In my opinion, they're just a little bit too stiff, especially in the lower lumbar area. I just feel like it's always constantly applying pressure to my back. And for me personally, it just doesn't feel super comfortable. That being said, none of the other competition really offer anything much better. They're all pretty much middle of the pack. I personally like the seats in my Ford Bronco more, but that's not really a direct competitor to this vehicle. They do have heated functionality, which is nice, but that does not come standard on the Pro-4X. Now, moving inwards from the door panel, you do have your air vent, and then below that, you do have what begins to be a plethora of buttons on the interior cabin. I mean, I just did a rough count, and I have probably over 30 buttons that you can push just on the dashboard. That's not including the door panels. On the left-hand side, you do have your tow modes. You do also have the controls to regulate the brightness of the gauge cluster. You have your audio notifications for your safety features. You also have the button to turn on the power outlet that's located in the truck bed. Further from that, you have your cargo lamps. You also have your hill descent control. And then below that, the next layer of buttons, you've got your rear locker and you've got your traction control off button. Now, moving towards the steering wheel, this is a pretty familiar steering wheel for other Nissans. I actually had a very similar one in the Infiniti QX80 I reviewed, just slightly different touches. On the left-hand side, you have your audio controls and the buttons to control your gauge cluster. And on the right-hand side is your cruise control buttons. I do like how this is leather wrapped and you have a little bit more of that lava red, orangish stitching to it. Looks really good, feels really comfortable in the hands. It is also a heated steering wheel in the particular vehicle I'm driving in, and it works really well. Now, the rest of the dashboard is all hard touch plastic. I mean, this is kind of my nightmare. But I will say that they do make it a little bit better because some of this material is textured. So it makes it look like it's not just cheap hard touch plastic, even though it is, but you know, you got some textured material to it. And again, over time, this may last a little bit better, be a little bit more durable and easier to clean. You do have a little rubberized compartment here in the center above the infotainment screen, which is nice to just put some keys or your phone or something. And then going over to the passenger side, you do have one area that does have a slightly soft touch material to it. I mean, this is borderline soft. You really have to push on it to feel it. But again, you have a little bit more of that textured material and then some more of that contrast fake stitching. I do like the use of different types of textures. I think that's one way you can get away with just doing cheap plastics, but making it look a little bit nicer inside, because this doesn't look as bad as it sounds on video. It's actually a pretty nice looking cabin overall. And I will say the competition doesn't offer anything better. I recently reviewed a Colorado ZR2, and that interior was a little less premium than this one. Now, moving to this instrument gauge cluster, I do like the lava red gauges. Those look really nice. And then you do have a 7-inch instrument gauge cluster display. This is something I reviewed on other Nissans and Infinitis. Pretty simple to use. It's nice and intuitive, pretty good graphics. There's nothing really fancy or crazy here, but again, none of the competition offer an all digital display. This is actually one of the largest among its class. And it's a really nice system. I do like that it has a digital speedometer as well. And then there is a really cool setting for your off-road mode. So I'll actually show you, whether you're locked into 4 high, 4 low, whether your rear locker is on, what angle and pitch you're in. So a really cool functionality there. I like that. And it's cool that they've added that for this off-road version. Now moving right towards the screen, you do have your controller for your 4 high, 4 low. Really easy to use, really quick to snap on. Next, we can start talking about this infotainment screen. So this is one of the best in class in terms of the size of the screen. It's a 9-inch touchscreen. The largest that's offered in the Colorado and the Tacoma is an 8-inch screen, and it works pretty well. Now, the standard Frontier will only come with an 8-inch, but since this is the Pro-4X, you have the upgraded screen, and I think it's a perfect size for a mid-size pickup truck. Honestly, anything larger would almost seem like overkill, even though that's probably the direction we're headed. It is a little bit slow in terms of software. I will say, I think Chevy or GMC software is a little bit snappier. There's really no lag on that system. It's one of the best softwares in the industry. This one does seem like it's a little bit delayed. It's just not as smooth as I want it to be, but it has all the functionality. You've obviously got AM, FM, satellite radio, you've got Bluetooth. You also have wireless Apple CarPlay, which is a new feature for 2023. It's wireless now. And you've got wired Android Auto, which is nice to have. And so the software on the screen doesn't really necessarily matter. And then in regards to the center display, you do have a 360-degree camera. Now, it's not the absolute best quality, but the fact that this vehicle does come with that is really nice, because the Colorado ZR2, once again, did not have a 360-degree camera. Moving further down, you have your hazards, then your climate control settings. You do have dual zone climate control here, which is nice. And then further below that is another set of buttons, which is your heated seats, high, low, heated steering wheel, your parking sensors, and you do have 2 USB ports as well. Further below that, you have a nice storage compartment. That's one thing I will mention about this vehicle, is it seems like it has a little bit more storage than the Colorado ZR2 I reviewed. A little bit more of that lava red accents on the interior. And then below that, you do have your gear selector, which is kind of really nice to shift or change. You have 2 cup holders and then a wireless charging pad, which is really nice to have. I do feel like this cabin is a little bit larger than the ZR2, especially the center arm console, because the ZR2 did not fit my Galaxy S22 on a wireless charging pad, and this one does. And there's actually still a little bit more space here. You do have a nice padded center arm console. It's not leather. It's kind of similar, carbon fiber weave or whatever you call it, that's on some of the dash panels, but it feels very comfortable. You can set your elbow here and not have any issues. I like the contrast orange or lava red stitching. And then opening it up, this is a bigger compartment than that in the ZR2 as well. I just feel like the interior is a little bit more spacious. Now moving upwards, there's not much more to report. You do have a sunglass holder over here, and then just your light controls. The last item you have up here is your switch to open the sunroof. It's nice that you have that. Now, this is not standard on the Pro-4X. This is an option that was added on my particular pickup truck, but that pretty much finishes off the front row. Now, jumping into the second row, a similar use of materials on the door panel, hard touch plastics at the top, a little bit more soft touch materials where you're going to rest your elbow. And then taking a look at the seats, they are just as nice looking as the front row. Now, sitting in them, they're not as comfortable. They're even less comfortable than the front row seats. You feel like you're sitting a little bit elevated in terms of your knees, and that's done in order to improve some of that leg room. So you kind of have to have your knees closer to your chest to be able to get a little bit extra leg room back there. You've got about 33 or so inches of leg room in the second row, which really isn't bad. It's a little bit more leg room than that in the Tacoma. And then climbing inside, it's pretty easy to do, but again, it's a little bit of a tighter space. So if you're driving in there for long periods of time, I'd recommend recommend probably having kids back there, or maybe just driving a second car, because it's not necessarily super comfortable. You also sit pretty upright, so you're not really able to lean back in the second row. And then in terms of headroom, I'm about 5'9". I've only got about 2 to 3 inches above me. It's not a massive amount of space, but it's what you would expect from a mid-size pickup truck. Now, you do also have an armrest back there with 2 cup holders. And then in the center arm console, you've got 2 USB ports and a household power outlet. That's really nice to have. Not all mid-size pickup trucks offer that. Now, I will say there are no rear air vents back there. That's not even an option, but that's also among the industry. The other thing to mention is the cabin is so small in the interior that whatever temperature you're setting the front, it's probably going to circulate back there pretty quickly. So you don't really need rear air vents in a mid-size pickup truck, but you don't even have that as an option, and neither does the Colorado ZR2. One more thing to mention is the rear glass does open, but it is manual operated. You don't have any type of button to automatically open it, but that's one less thing that can break on the interior. And finally, the rear seats do actually lift up to provide a little bit extra storage space. So by lifting up the little handle on the side of the driver or passenger side, you can lift up the entire seat cushion, and there is a closed storage compartment. And I believe you can actually remove this little cubby to provide a more flat loading floor. Underneath the rear seats of the driver's side, you have your Fender audio system. So you do compromise a little bit of storage space if you choose the Fender audio system. Okay, now let's start talking about pricing. Now, the Frontier starts with the Frontier S at just around $29,000, and that is for a king cab configuration, so you don't have the full 4 doors, and you have rear wheel drive. Now, if you want all-wheel drive on any of the trim levels, it's about $2,000 to $3,000 more. From the S, you get the SV trim, which has a little bit more bells and whistles, and then new for 2023, they have something called the Midnight Edition, which just adds black accents throughout the interior and exterior, kind of giving it a sporty and cool look to it. Now, the top of the line trim is the vehicle in front of me. Now, the Pro-4X starts at just around $38,700. The one I'm actually reviewing today is pretty much the top of the line edition, has all of the bells and whistles. This one is about $46,380. Now, there's 3 main packages on this one on top of the base Pro-4X, and one of those packages is called the Pro Convenience Package, which adds in this spray-in bed liner. It includes the power outlet in the bed. You also get the heated seats, the heated steering wheel, and you get remote start using just your key fob, which is a really nice feature to have. By the way, this is just your standard Nissan key fob, nothing really crazy there. The Pro Convenience group also adds a trailer hitch. So yeah, you can get a Frontier without a trailer hitch, even though this is a pickup truck, which is kind of odd. Further inside the vehicle, the Pro Convenience Package also includes the wireless charging pad over here and your 360-degree camera, which you can just activate with the push of a button. Now, this vehicle also has the Pro Premium Package, which includes this 10-speaker Fender audio system. You also get additional amenities like these leather seats that I showed off earlier. You also get the sunroof with this package. In addition, you have a home link system for your garage door opener. And the one touch that this package adds to the exterior is these beadlock style wheels. Now, the last package that this vehicle comes with is a $990 technology package, and that includes this traffic sign recognition. You have your intelligent radar cruise control, which works pretty well. You've got lane departure warning, although this doesn't have lane keep assist or anything like that. You also include your blind spot monitoring over in the side view mirrors, and you have your rear cross traffic alert and rear parking sensors as well. Okay, now let's get behind the wheel and actually drive it, and let me give you my honest impressions of this vehicle. First off, getting into the car, it's pretty easy to do. The step in height is relatively low. It's not that much taller than like any crossover, so you don't really need a side step or anything like that, like with a full-size truck. But climbing in more times than I want to admit, as I'm adjusting my seatbelt, my clothes and everything, I have hit my head on the ceiling quite a few times. And I don't know if it's just me, but I'm not even tall. I'm 5'9", and there's just not that much space above me. My Bronco is a lot taller. Even my Challenger actually has more space. That's just because the compartment is kind of small. It's a mid-sized truck, so just be mindful of that. We're going to turn this vehicle on. It does have push-button start, which is not something all the other competitors have, which is nice. And then I do like the graphic over here on the instrument gauge cluster. Now, setting off here, one thing I do want to point out, one thing I noticed immediately is, for one, your seating position is pretty high up. And that's kind of typical for a pickup truck. You know, you see the hood in front of you. It's actually kind of blocking your view, but I like it. It makes it look kind of like it's just more aggressive, more off-road-like, and I just like the way it looks. But what I wanted to say is the steering is actually pretty heavy. So when you're pulling into parking spots and just kind of maneuvering it with one hand, it's not that you can't do that. You definitely can. See, I'm driving with one hand right now, but it's heavier than I expected. It's definitely heavier than any full-size pickup truck I've driven, where they're almost like buttery smooth on the steering wheel. And it's even heavier than what's in my Ford Bronco. Now, as we're driving on this road, it is a pretty quiet cabin inside. Now, I'm not sure if that has to do with the acoustic glass that they advertise or the way that this cabin kind of just sits on the strut, but regardless, it is a very quiet cabin inside. You can easily have a conversation with somebody. Okay, now, as I mentioned earlier, this thing has a 3.8 liter V6, and it's actually pretty quick. It honestly feels quicker than the advertised 7.5 0 to 60. We're about to kind of just get on this on-ramp, and let me show you what that feels like. Okay, we got to 60 right there. And there's a bunch of stuff flying around back there. Honestly, the 0 to 30 is where this engine just excels. It almost has like a really touchy gas pedal. It reminds me a lot of my Dodge Challenger Scat Pack from back in the day. You know, you just have to push it down like a quarter of the way, and this thing will throw you back into your seat. I mean, that's why all the stuff was kind of thrown around back there, is because that low-end torque is just really, really strong. Now, where it lacks a little bit is passing power when you're like at highway speeds. So, for example, you know, we're 40 right now. Let's say I want to pass somebody. You know, it's struggling a little bit to get up to speed. I mean, that took probably 5 or 6 seconds to go up 10 miles an hour. Now, we are on an incline, so I don't blame the car for that. But even on flat roads, when I've been trying to accelerate, you know, passing people on the freeway, that's where it lacks a little bit. And again, that just has to do with the fact that this is a naturally aspirated engine. That's why you have better low-end acceleration, because you don't have any turbo lag, but that is also why you don't have the best passing power, because typically in turbos, you're already spooled up and you have that torque available for you when you're passing somebody on the freeway. Now, talking about the Bilstein shocks in this vehicle, it seems like this truck rides a little bit softer or less bouncy than my Ford Bronco, which also has Bilsteins. I don't know exactly why that is. Maybe the shocks are completely different. They just happen to be the same company. But, you know, driving over train tracks or just some bumps, this thing bounces a little bit. I mean, at the end of the day, this has leaf springs in the back. It's a solid rear axle. What do you expect? But it doesn't kind of jar you. I mean, it's a pretty comfortable ride overall. Now, in terms of safety features, this doesn't have Nissan's Pro Pilot Assist, which is kind of the entire suite of safety features they offer, where it can actually keep you centered in the lane. This thing does have lane departure warning. It does have adaptive cruise control as well, so it will monitor the speed of the vehicle in front of you, and it works pretty well. I used it on the highway driving to this destination, and, you know, I had no issues with it. But I do kind of wish they had some sort of lane centering. That would kind of be a class leader. You know, Toyota offers a really good suite of safety features, and so in order to better compete with the Tacoma, I think they should have included Nissan's Pro Pilot Assist, especially since they already have that technology. Now, in terms of reliability and warranty, I think this vehicle will be pretty reliable over time. I mean, you still see, you know, previous generation Frontiers on the road with, you know, 150, 200,000 miles. That's not uncommon. And I think this powertrain is actually pretty reliable as well. The 3.8 liter V6, 9-speed automatic transmission. I really don't think reliability is going to be an issue on this vehicle, but you also get Nissan's 3-year, 36,000 bumper-to-bumper warranty and a 5-year, 60,000-mile limited powertrain warranty, just in case as like an extra precaution in case you have any issues early on. So to sum up this video, what are my thoughts on the Frontier, and, you know, how would I rank it compared to, you know, the Tacoma, the Colorado, etc.? It's really hard to say. Now, the Frontier isn't a class leader amongst the entire category, but there's not really a class leader in the category to begin with. I mean, they all have their strengths and weaknesses. The Frontier strength is the fact that you can get this configured with a, you know, extended cab. You can get this in a 6-foot bed, 5-foot bed, rear-wheel drive, 4-wheel drive. There's a lot of customization in how you build your Frontier to be able to get the right price point that you want. The other strength that this vehicle has is technology. I mean, jumping inside, really none of the other competitors offer a 9-inch touchscreen, 7-inch gauge cluster display. You know, this has wireless Apple CarPlay, wired Android Auto, wireless charging. The tech here is probably some of the best in its class. I do want to point out that the seating position here is also better than that in the Tacoma. I mean, the Tacoma seating position is one of the worst in the industry. You almost feel like you're sitting in a sport car because it's just such a small cabin. At the same time, some of its weaknesses is the fact that their towing capacity isn't as strong as some of the competition. You also don't have the most advanced safety features, even though Nissan does offer that on some of their other vehicles. You know, in terms of off-road capability, you don't have a front locker like you do in the ZR2. So it kind of really depends on what truck you're looking for. If you're looking for some of the best tech and a really smooth, nice handling vehicle, very quiet cabin on the inside, I think the Frontier is a fantastic choice for you. But if you're looking for the most extreme off-roader, even though this thing is probably going to accomplish 95% of your needs, you might have to look at the ZR2 or perhaps the Jeep Gladiator Rubicon. But I have a feeling for the majority of people out there, they're going to be really impressed with this vehicle, myself included. The interior is really some of the best in its class. Even though it does have hard touch plastics, it looks premium, some of the textures are premium, and I really like the way everything is positioned. You know, you can easily reach the infotainment screen. So I would personally recommend this vehicle for anybody in the market for a mid-size pickup truck. You'd be really dumb to not take a look at this vehicle and at least take it for a test drive and see if you like it. It's very capable on and off road, and at this price point at around, you know, $46,000, considering the average new car is somewhere around that, if not higher, and you get 4 doors, seating for 5, a 5-foot truck bed, very durable frame, it's a boxed in frame, and lots of amenities. I think this is definitely a vehicle you should include in your shopping list. But let me know your thoughts on the updated Nissan Frontier. This thing was really a surprise to me because I didn't expect it to be as good as it is. But would you pick this over the Tacoma, the Frontier, the Colorado, or the Ranger? Or would you pick the others, and why? Let me know your thoughts down in the comments below. And while you're at it, make sure you hit that like button if you enjoyed today's video and subscribe to the channel for all of the weekly car videos. Also check me out on all the social media down in the description below. And as always, everybody, I hope you stay schwazy, stay healthy, and have a wonderful day.